again. Sable here doing another UPL Week 2 match. This time we've got King Billu versus Cake. So Cake coming off a win last week, Billu coming off a loss to Ghastlies. It'll be interesting seeing how these two match up, but I've already kind of talked about their team styles, so let's get into it, and I can talk about the teams as they get revealed. Starmie lead from King Billu, Tauros from Cake. So as with the match I just covered between Ghastlies and B, the way that this lead interaction plays out will tell me a lot about both players' goals in this game. Cake going straight to Mewtwo suggests that it's either a barrier 2 or some kind of like amnesia 2 attacks, recover Mewtwo that she doesn't care about getting paralyzed. Barrier 2, you want to take paralysis for sure. I am not so sure I agree with the idea that like Amni 2 attacks recover Mewtwo should be taking para. Because if it has like Amnesia, Blizzard, and then one of T-Bolt or Psychic, it's incredibly deadly in the late game if you don't let it get paralyzed. It'll just tear through teams. +2 Blizzard Oko's like Egg, Rhydon, Zapdos, +2 Psychic can Oko Tauros a good chunk of the time. So I don't know. It could really go either way. But either way, indicating a willingness from Mewtwo to take paralysis, and Billu not biting on that and clicking Blizzard suggests that he's not willing to sleep block himself, so maybe doesn't have the physical pressure that you would need to ensure sleep, even after you click a turn 1 T-Wave. So we'll see. And getting out to Chansey, so that makes a lot of sense. Regardless of what set this Mewtwo has, Chansey can come in and threaten to sleep it. T-Wave Blizzard from Mewtwo. So interesting that she's shown Blizzard and T-Wave. That sort of suggests Amnesia, Blizzard, Thunderwave, Boom, which is a set that she does run a lot. But if that's the set, do you really want to switch into Starmie? Do you just not have something else that can paralyze it? So last week, Cake ran into a bit of a problem where she just didn't run enough T-Wave users, and that cost her pretty dearly in one of those games. And could have cost her more, I think. Like she could have lost that set because of those team choices. And this might be playing out again where there's just not an answer to Starmie. I'm recalling a match I played against her in the finals of RBY Ubers Tournament 4, where this problem happened where I had a Starmie and she had an Amni Blizz Boom Mewtwo, and I walled it out of all its Blizzards and just forced the Boom out of it. So if that's happening again, then Billu picks up on it, then this could go really bad. But for now, clicking Sing as Cake tries to sack Tauros to sleep, it's a good move to go to Tauros because if the Sing misses, you have immense pressure on the Chansey here. Yeah, and Billu's just not going to get sleep from this. Choosing to save it for now and go to Snorlax. I think maybe with the Chansey, he could have just T-Waved this Tauros and neutered it early. It's not that hard to remove the Tauros later to get Sing off. So maybe a little bit too greedy going for that here. It's only a 40% to hit through paralysis. And Cake calling out the Earthquake, calling out the counter with an Earthquake, so not eating counter from Snorlax. That seemed like something of a read. Maybe she watched some of his replays and just knew that he likes Counterlax a lot and hit it. I haven't played Billu yet this tournament as of the time of recording, so I haven't really checked out his scout too in depth, but Counter does sound like him for sure. And coming back to Starmie trying to catch the Hyper Beam, but Cake just continuing to slam, and this Tauros is just clearing through him. This is super free so far. I do think at some point he could consider just stopping the bleeding and sacking something instead of repeatedly switching into Tauros, but gets a lucky break with that miss. Ice Beam Mewtwo reveal. So I don't know if that's not Barrier 2, then I already really don't know if I like this, but in general, this looks like a very old style of team. You've got Starmie, Chansey, Snorlax, Mewtwo. Obviously, there will be a Mew, and then the last might just be some generic good Pokemon like Tauros or Zapdos. But if this is like Amnesia, Ice Beam, Psychic, Recover Mewtwo, then I don't love this for Billu. And I especially don't love it for Cake if this just becomes like a freeze war, but she probably has self-destruct on this, which makes Mewtwo the right guy to go to here. Just force it to get out or get the T-Wave boom on it. Yeah, thankfully not an Ice Beam Mewtwo on her side, or this would be really like another really slow, sad game. But barrier from King Billu. So okay, so that was an intentional paralysis catch to set up this Mewtwo. If Cake has an ice type, she would go to it, but she's setting up Mew, which suggests she doesn't, and she's just going to set up to full and try to break through. My guess is this is not a boom Mew on her side, but it could be, so who knows. I guess we'll see in a minute what happens after they both get to +6. Billu should probably get an attack off and then boost up one more time as the Mew recovers in case it, just to see what it has. I'm going to guess this is Mono Earthquake Mew, but who knows. And trying to just stall it out, I don't know if I super love that, but as long as he doesn't boost up further, maybe that is the right play. And this probably is going to be two-wave Earthquake Mew, but it could be Hyper Beam or something, or even Explosion. If it's Explosion, then this is like a pretty fair fight for Cake to take because you only need to get it down to like 60 and then you can boom it out. Either way, Billu playing pretty safe around the possibility of a boom. So maybe thinking that that could be coming, but gets the freeze on Mew, and now this is horrible for Cake. Like, you can bring in Mewtwo, of course, but you're gonna just get stalled out very freely. If the Mewtwo doesn't, like, crit boom Billu's Mewtwo, then I wouldn't say that there's a good chance. Billu, for his part, should not be engaging in Ice Beaming this. You're not gonna win that. You should just be PP stalling by spamming Barrier and Amnesia. Yeah, so he's still doing it. It's not ideal. You can't freeze this, and he gets out to Egg. I think that's a huge mistake. You have your setup Mewtwo in there with 31 Amnesias, 45 Barriers, 30 Recovers versus a Mewtwo that almost certainly does not have Psychic and has only 8 attacking PP before it has to boom. You could have just sat there, stalled this out, and won the game. I think this was a borderline unlosable game, and Cake would have had to get a lot of luck to get out of that situation. And by going to Egg, you're kind of forfeiting a very free advantage where Cake can't really switch out of you either because those +4 ice beams would hurt so much. So Egg coming in, but Billu calling that with a sleep powder, calling that Cake wouldn't just sack the frozen Mew, which makes sense because you don't want to let Barrier 2 set up and get another free freeze. But now this is horrid for Cake. If she manages to win this, I think it'll take Billu making a lot of bad plays and Cake probably making a lot of good ones. Because right now, it's like even though Billu basically lost almost 3 whole Pokemon to Tauros, this Mewtwo seems poised to just win. No freeze there, and this Mew hopefully has T-Wave. So we won't know. It should live even a crit blizzard here, but Cake bailing out to Golem. Seems like she's been bringing that a lot these first couple weeks to try to block a return T-Wave. Billu just going to go to Egg. No real reason not to. This Egg's already more than done its job, so you can just sit here and play these games where you click Psychic or Stun Spore every time you come in on the Golem and see what you hit. Stun Spore here would be really good, and gets it. So at this point, I feel like Cake just has 0 threat on her team as long as you don't let her get like a free boom on this Mewtwo or something. And it reveals Psychic, so there's not even a boom. You can just set up for free here if you just recover first. No recovery, now you have to get out. So this is, now I'm starting to see how Billu could lose this. Between that bit of luck with the drop and the paralysis, as well as just bailing out of the Ice Beam too, which can we just talk about the fact that Cake's team is, again, just has no answer to Barrier 2 here. This Mewtwo doesn't even have Boom. This Mew almost certainly didn't have Boom. Executor and Golem both just die instantly to boosted Ice Beam. Tauros dies to boosted Ice Beam and has to crit multiple times to get through. Whatever Cake's last is might be like a Snorlax, might be probably not a T-Waver because we've seen that she doesn't really seem to like her T-Wavers very much. Billu could have 6-0'd this with Mewtwo by just staying in once he got the setup. This would have been it would have been a long game because you would have had to sit there PP stalling the Mewtwo out, but it would have been like 20 turns of actual gameplay because as soon as the Mewtwo is stalled out, you just sweep. Now instead, gonna be playing quite the long game here, and if I'm Billu, what I'm thinking about here is you need to reapply paralysis to this Mewtwo to give your Mewtwo a chance to recover, and then you're totally fine. So it's hard to do that because the Mew is already paralyzed, but surely you can find some chance in here on a recovery turn. Surely you can like get Snorlax in and threaten to boom it, something. But now with that drop, this is looking really bad, and I think that Billu just kind of let this get out of his control after completely, again, just completely having the game in his hands. It was almost unlosable from there. Egg in, so you can threaten to click Psychic and reapply, but he's just using it to clear the Starmie and try to PP stall this Mewtwo out. It kind of works. There's only 4 Blizzards and 16 Psychics, or 11 Psychics at this point, but it's not ideal. And it's asking a lot when all your Pokemon are slower than this, pretty much. So gonna keep recovering up, probably gonna switch at some point, and Cake clicking Blizzard to try to cover for Egg coming in, but Billu staying in wisely there. I think maybe now this turn you go to just Chansey and not risk the Egg like that. But this time gets it right, so that works out. And now just obviously gonna be back to Starmie again. We'll never know what Cake clicked there, but sort of stalling this out. There's only 3 Blizzards, 9 Psychics. I think this is ultimately very risky, and if Billu loses this position, it's like more the expected outcome than a result of hacks. Especially because the Starmie is just never going to beat this Mewtwo. You'd have to crit it multiple times while it paralyzes. And Cake's obviously just going to recover right away and not let that even happen. So we're going to be here for a little bit as they play this out. I'm going to actually speed it up slightly. But ultimately, like, Cake just has to call one Blizzard right, and this game starts getting really out of control. But instead she goes to Snorlax. So now that we see the whole team, you've got one T-Waver, the Egg, and then Tauros, Golem, Snorlax. So Cake continuing to play with just 0 T-Wave pressure. At least this Mewtwo has Recover instead of Boom, so it's actually present to get some T-Waves in the game. But I just don't think you can do this unless this is a T-Wave Mew. I'm thinking back to how she paralyzed Billu's Mewtwo, and that makes me think this might even be like a Hyper Beam Mew rather than a T-Wave Mew. If this has T-Wave, I think you kind of have enough T-Wave to just play the game that way with this very heavily physical offense-oriented team. If not, then I am not really sure why she's not running more of that. On Billu's side, I think this team is just a little too old school. There's not quite enough damage. I do like the barrier 2 idea, but I think you could get rid of this Chansey and do something else and just have like a little more pressure. If you're running barrier 2 with no, like almost no booms, you've got 2 booms depending on what this Mew has, but I don't think it's boom. It's kind of hard to get the situations you need for it to just clean up by itself. So Billu staying in, choosing to click T-Wave. Starmie is still slower here, so gonna have to get out after this. Really, you should just sack Chansey because Hyper Beam could be coming, but works out this time. I'm not sure why Cake didn't Hyper Beam. It would have killed Mewtwo. It would have done enough to Mew to not be a big problem. Would have done a ton to Executor. I guess if you hit Executor, you can get slept in retaliation because of a Gen 1 bug where during Hyper Beam recharge you can be sleep moves will automatically hit and will put you to sleep even if you had a different status before. But who's going to send their Executor in to take 50 something from Snorlax Hyper Beam? It would be a crazy move. It would set up Golem to win the game because, like, look how chipped everything is. Yeah, I think Cake was always safe to Hyper Beam there, but not doing that means that the Snorlax gets to threaten Boom. And counter is a nice call out. So expecting that there's going to be a switch, it covers for any other switch in case it's not the Mew, in case like the Golem or something trying to catch Boom. And now Freeze is open again, so if he ever gets a chance to recover this Mewtwo, this is going to get really bad for Cake really quickly, but I'm not sure that he can. Cake going to Tauros was definitely the right play. It helps control the game and make sure that the Mewtwo isn't getting a chance to recover at all here. And doubling the Mewtwo, interesting. So if this gets dropped, that can give a chance for Billu to recover the Mewtwo, and at that point, I think this game is very bad for Cake. Smartly not recovering. I'm glad that she did not click recover. Now he's probably going to get his Mewtwo halfway back into the game, but this is really precarious, and maybe you need to just sack something and not play this. And she's running Stomp Tauros in lead, so this is not ideal for the Mewtwo. The Mew is also not going to have a fun time with this, but guess we'll see what happens. Probably T-Wave coming. Nope, soft boiled right away. Okay, I don't think that Billu has T-Wave on this. Because if he did, surely want to get rid of the paraflinch threat. And I'm going to double back to Mewtwo. It's a smart double there. So as long as you don't get crit blizzarded right now, you're fine. Cake not even going to try it. And Mewtwo is back. If it gets some barriers up, this could just be over. Now, the chance of getting it is only like 52% on any given turn, but like he's favored for sure to get it, even from here. And doesn't. So Cake, with a fair bit of luck behind her on this one, gets through the entire Mewtwo. Oh, no, choosing a Body Slam and not Hyper Beam to confirm it. So I get the fear of like a switch out to Mew catching it, but I think it's pretty clear at this point that Mew is not T-Wave. I don't think you have anything to fear here at all. Like this turn, you surely Hyper Beam. Still not Hyper Beaming. So guess she's willing to just try to flinch this over and over and over. She's gotten like 3 flinches in a full para so far to be in this position, and that's a big ask to keep having that go on over and over. Now, I'm going to guess Billu's going to go to Mewtwo here. No, not going to risk getting blizzarded on entry. Going to sack the Starmie first. That's probably a wiser play. I thought this Mewtwo was at like 45 and not at 33. So just going to go back to playing this. Kind of surprised that Cake doesn't just go to Snorlax instead of playing this really bad stall war where this Mewtwo is about to become useless. Billu going to Mewtwo on a predicted recovery, but Cake should never recover from this point on in the game. She should just be attacking the whole time and nonstop because she has the Tauros poised to win the game, but letting up a chance for Billu to recover would throw the game. So I really agree with continuing the Psychic here and not giving up any momentum. The problem is what happens when she starts running out of Psychics and Blizzards. If like that free switch turn could be really, really bad too, depending on what is in on Billu's side. So we'll see how this pans out. Cake is very close to running out of PP here, but chipping down that Mewtwo makes it very hard for Billu to play, and the special drop on Starmie means it's a very free Snorlax entry. I don't see any real way for Billu to deal with the Snorlax unless it's just crit it twice. And probably a Hyper Beam coming. She's really, really shy of Hyper Beaming this game. I think that shyness slowed down a game that she could have already won. But again, like Billu kind of gave up this game first by not just committing to the barrier 2, which I think would have 6-0'd this team incredibly hard. Not taking the KO, so just kind of seeing a chance to recover the Mewtwo again and try this again. If this paralyzes, this game's over, though. This game's over. So, very unlucky for Billu, honestly. Like, all those flinches and paralysis were the only thing that stopped him winning this, even after giving up that barrier position. But I can't feel too much sympathy because giving up that barrier position again gave up a sure win. Nice double at least. So you get in on the golem and chunk it down to almost nothing, but it still has boom and there's really nothing you can do about that. I guess you go to Starmie and force it to boom the Starmie. Okay, going to Mewtwo because it's at 20%, but like Cake can also just Earthquake there and there's not really any problem to it. Whenever the Starmie KOs it, it's still not going to be in a good range. Yeah, so I think ultimately this was a positionally mismanaged game by Billu. I think Cake's team was incredibly vulnerable to getting walked over by Barrier 2 and just the chance was missed, and now it's just going to be a bunch of booms. The upside of running a team like Cake's is at least like with these 3 booms, once you get that one T-Waver to get a couple T-Waves, maybe you can just boom through stuff. But like you're really relying a lot on RNG for this to go right with Stomp and Paralysis for these guys to do enough damage with no additional support really. If this Mew had T-Wave or if it had Hyper Beam, I'm seeing problems with both. Like, but I think T-Wave is the more reasonable bring at least because you do need some T-Wave support. I'm gonna guess this was T-Wave. Maybe learned a bit from last week versus Unknown Dragon where she just got freeze fished for not having any T-Wavers on the whole team. Yeah, ultimately, Cake takes game 1. Definitely could have been a win for Billu if he just played it a bit different. Into game 2. Zapdos lead versus Tauros. So again, the whether or not T-Wave comes through will say a lot about how Billu's planning to play this. Toxic. So Cake has run Golem, I think, every single game so far. If not, maybe dropped it one time. So kind of a funny tech. I've seen Ghastlies do this to catch Rhydons as well, where you toxic them so that every time they come in, they're taking chip. It's like it's a little silly, I think. I'm not sure that I'm the biggest fan of it, but it is maybe a bit safer than trying to double switch in situations where you might get owned for that. So probably now gonna go to egg anyway, take a rock slide, but like you see, it's not quite gonna rack up as fast as this golem is gonna push this egg. And probably just gonna boom. Yeah, like that's the other problem. You can't sleep it, so then unless you crit it, you're just getting boomed. The fact that it's alive on 1% is nice, but the fact that Cake has a Tauros makes that very hard to preserve anyway. Or not, I guess there's a Cloister. So as long as you don't get crit on entry, this is probably fine. Paralysis is unideal. Going straight to Mewtwo and Para for Billu. So not the luckiest game so far, but I don't know if that toxic idea even gets you that far. T-Wave from Mewtwo. I'm going to guess this is going to be another like T-Wave 2 attacks Mewtwo. And a return T-Wave from the Mew on Egg. So sleep is not happening for anybody this game. Cake probably looking to just wear down the Mew with drops and then throw out a boom. And Billu does have like a very open Zapdos now that the Golem has boomed. So in that sense, Toxic did succeed, but I think getting your sleep is probably more important than that. Cake's team looking like exactly the same as last game. It's probably a Snorlax, and of course it's going to be a Mew. It might actually just be the literal same team as last time, in fact, which wouldn't be out of character for her at all. I don't think she's really like I don't know how to say this other than like not really respecting Billu's teams and just thinking I can just run this and I'll probably win. And to be fair, I mean, it worked versus a team that should have 6-0'd her in this case. But I'll be interested to see what Billu's running as far as the Mewtwo set and what the last is. On a team like this, you've got Zapdos, Egg, T-Wave, Mew. I'm expecting there's going to be some physical attacker like Snorlax or Tauros as the last Pokemon besides the Mewtwo. Mewtwo set I could see going a lot of ways, but I would think probably you want Amni 2 attacks and try to sweep after like Zapdos, Egg, Mew spread some status. Or you could be running like T-Wave Boom Mewtwo and trying to set up a last Mon physical attacker. I am wondering what this Mew is going to have as its attack, because if it's just T-Wave Earthquake with no other attack, seems pretty hard for this team to deal with Zapdos, especially if it's a recoverless Mewtwo, then you're just kind of screwed versus Zapdos. So we'll see. And if it's, of course, like a different mono attacking Mew, then that's not ideal for like Gengar or what have you, but maybe not so worried about that. And it does seem to just be Earthquake. And no soft boiled here, so maybe it is 2 attacks, and maybe there's going to be a Hyper Beam coming out in a minute. But nope, doesn't seem to be Hyper Beam. Like you're just gonna get boomed, and so I think you need to recover if you have it. Yep, there it goes. So trading 1 for 1, I wouldn't say this is very ideal with that Mewtwo there, unless this is a T-Wave Mewtwo on Billu's end. If it is, this is fine. If not, this is pretty scary. Cloister also notably extremely strong into Cake's teams. Obviously, when you bring Tauros, Snorlax, Golem, Executor every single game, and usually bring maybe not so offensively inclined Mew sets that is still based on physical attacks, then Cloister kind of farms. Much less so when it's paralyzed like this. But I think like Billu's getting the right reads for what to bring team-wise overall. But there's like some small issues in the builder I don't love, and then there's like the way that these are played not being super ideal. If this is Blizzard Mew too, then this is going to do a ton of damage. That crit actually nerfing its damage a little bit, which is good for Cake. Going straight to Zapdos. And I just push with T-Wave here. So this, I'm going to guess this is actually Amnesia 2 attacks Mewtwo. I don't think that it's, wow, okay, that's unlucky. Really having a hard time this set with flinches, with paralysis, with a 256. I have to wonder how this set would have turned out without all that. Because really, Cake is getting bailed on a lot of these turns while having a very distinctly bad team matchup. And we're probably going to see more of this Mewtwo set as it comes in on Cloyster. A freeze would go an incredibly long way for Billu. It would probably be an automatic win. And there's Psychic. I do think this is just the exact same team from Cake, so probably it's Blizzard Recover as the last two. And an unlucky miss. Yeah, as I mentioned in like the prior game, I think it's a little bit hard to have too much sympathy when there was a one position that didn't really rely on RNG there. But this one, I feel worse for Billu in for sure because look how many turns he's just not getting to play the game. No crit. Is there a para at least? No. So Cake just moving through paralysis just fine while Billu's missing all these turns. Really tough. And Blizzard not favored to KO here at all. It does like 29 to 34 to Snorlax. Going for Clamp first to try to lock it down. And Mewtwo in. Cake stays in, doesn't double out on it. So there'll be a setup chance here. And if it's the same Mewtwo as last time, which it almost certainly is, then Billu could set up here with Amnesia or what have you. But yet another Blizz miss and eats a crit. Hopefully clicked recover. Paralysis. Yeah, so this isn't really much of a game two. This is just, honestly, Cake got everything. And there's a Tauros, which makes sense as the last with some of this T-Wave support over here. But even if this gets a crit para, like as long as Cake doesn't paralyze here, it's almost impossible to win this anyway. Yeah, there's still a Mew here, there's still a Snorlax. I think, and there's still a full Tauros, so this is hard. Like Cloyster has to outperform everything here, not take any crits, not take any paralysis. It's a big ask. It wouldn't even be unlucky for Tauros to crit through it. But of course, immediate paralysis. That's been the theme of this set. I'm going to stomp it and I'm going to guess flinch it. But no, for once he gets an attack off here. So Tauros is almost certainly going to clean up. I can't really see much reason that it wouldn't here. Cake would have to have some very bad luck to lose from this point. And Billu gives up and forfeits. So 2-0 for Cake. Game one, I think, was a bit of a tossed position into getting some bad luck after that. This game was just very unlucky for Billu. I don't think that there was much he could have done. I think the Cloyster should have been poised to pretty much win this. I do want to go back a bit to the beginning though, because I do think one thing I didn't love was just, again, toxicking the golem I didn't love in the first place, especially if you're going to stay in with egg on it. Like, surely you double back to Zapdos and try to catch that boom and preserve your egg. But also just hard Cloyster into Tauros this early. I don't think I love that. I think you have to know with Cake that she's, if you see Tauros Golem, you have to know she's probably got egg Snorlax and your Cloyster is set up to farm as soon as you get some paralysis out. So I think you have to not let it take that Paraslam, even if it is a bit unlucky that it took it immediately, so that you can play the game a bit better. But ultimately, like, that's such a minor thing compared to paralyzing over and over and over and just not getting a chance to play this one. So good effort, but didn't work out for Billu this time. And that's about it for this game. I don't think I have much else to say because Cake really just ran the same team twice. Billu tried some stuff with ice moves that should have preyed upon this. Didn't really work out. So as usual, let me know what you think about these sets, about the commentary, if there's anything else that you'd like me to cover, or just any suggestions for improving these. I'm still keeping it pretty low production because I don't have time to do editing and whatever else. But let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. One more to cover for week 2.